So being enriched, and this participle is circumstantial. That means it's adverbial, goes with these main verbs of supplying, multiplying, and increasing. And then we have this that goes with these verbs. But this circumstantial participle is one of result. Because of this principle of supply and multiply of the blessing, you will be enriched, and therefore it is a result. So we can go with the result that you'll be enriched in all things. Let's go for that right now. With the result that you will be enriched in all things. And then, first of all, the Corinthians have already been enriched in something else. We see this in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 5. I don't know if you recall, chapter 1, verse 5. What does it say? Paul is here in the beginning of the first epistle. He says, always thank God, my God, concerning you at all times, because of the grace which has been given in y'all, in Christ Jesus. Keep in mind that there's nothing to thank God for the Corinthians about. So what is the only thing that you can thank God about with regards to the Corinthians? The grace that has been given to them. This is the first letter of the Corinthians, and it was written at a time when they were rebellious. Everything they did was wrong. Absolutely everything they did was wrong. Beginning with refusing to use 1 John 1:9 as per 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and chapter 3. But he thanks God for something. He is thankful for the grace which was given to them. And then verse 5, he says, because, that in all things y'all have been enriched in him. So they have been enriched with reference to logistical grace. In all doctrine, by means of all doctrine, and all gnosis. So they've learned a lot of doctrine, even though they're doing everything wrong. But a lot of it is only gnosis, and it has not become epignosis doctrine. This is part of the reason. They're learning Bible doctrine, still being controlled by mental attitude sins, still being slanderers, gossiping, being cattywampus with each other as they learn Bible doctrine, because they refuse to use 1 John 1:9. So a lot of this knowledge that they're learning, a lot of the doctrine, is only gnosis. So we must, Paul's trying to be positive here. There is something to thank God about with regards to the Corinthians. It is the grace. This grace has enriched them. And what is it? How? By means of all doctrine and gnosis. Okay. This is enrichment in logistical grace. But now the Corinthians have recovered. And the Corinthians received the promise of being enriched with super grace blessings. And so, what do we have? With the result that you will be enriched in all things. And now we have this prepositional phrase, ace plus the accusative of result as well, or purpose. Ace plus the accusative of haplotes, haploteita. And how are we going to translate this? For haplotita, gracious generosity. What we have here with, we have the adjective right there in the attributive position, all gracious generosity. We've gone over this word. Do you remember 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 2? The Macedonians, that in the sphere of much or severe testing for the purpose of approval, dealing with pressure, the overflow of their happiness plus H in gate 5, plus their deep down poverty. So the doctrine plus the doctrine resulted in something welled up, resulting in the riches of their gracious generosity. Riches are those super grace blessings. Gracious generosity is the harvest of righteousness, those spiritual blessings, the mental attitude produced from that. Aplotes. So what does aplotes mean? Gracious generosity? Yes. The etymology of this word comes from, first of all, let's go back down. We see the alpha privative there. Aploteta. Haploteta, rather, as a rough breathing. So, is a privative, not. And then the word, it comes from pleiko. Pleiko means braid, weave together. So, but the alpha privative is not weave together, not braided, not folded. So in other words, this means no duplicity, a mental attitude of no duplicity, no complexity, or rather it's clean, unfolded, pure, and therefore it's often translated as sincerity many times. But sincerity has turned into a bad word, a cheap word, a weak emotional word in our language. Well, at least that's how I take it. Many people still see sincerity as something virtuous, but it deals with a lot of ignorance and emotionalism. The Bible's not going to use such weak words as sincerity. It's going to use something like haploteta. This has to do with integrity based on the righteousness and the justice of God. You also produce righteousness and justice. There's no need for you to have ulterior motives and have to be fake and be super fake with a mask on, hypocritical. It is integrity. But integrity has a wonderful facet called generosity. And you give the person with integrity, the virtuous person, gives from what he has because he is a happy person on his integrity. And he gives with no strings attached. And then this is one of the results of being in super grace. Whatever that you have, you're thankful about it and you give it to other people. Because you don't mind you keeping those things, as in, oh, I'm going to lose these things, etc. Because you have God. He is the source of your blessing. Once you have the source of the blessing, you do not care so much about the blessing itself because you have the source. Okay, so yes, this is integrity. It's often translated simplicity, weak, sincerity, weak, open-heartedness, weak, liberality, weak. I like integrity, and I think the Bible makes it clear that aploteta is not sincerity. It's something stronger. It comes from the holiness of God, the integrity of God. You produce integrity. But again, this facet, one of the facets is gracious generosity. It is integrity expressed through gracious generosity, a gracious mental attitude, without a facade, nor with an outward show or wrong motivations, or I'm going to do things just so that I can make an outward show so that people can see me. Wrong. Your motivations are completely on check. Correct. This is something that we call a brachiology, where there is an omission of words and you supply them. So how are we going to do this? Literally is for all gracious generosity, or for the purpose of all gracious generosity. But we add a word for the expression of all gracious generosity. Brachiology sometimes just adds one word and omits another one, assuming that you're going to be able to supply the right word. So that's what we have here. You will be rich in all things for the purpose of the expression of all gracious generosity. Excuse me. Whoa. And this is something that you're going to have when you're rugged super grace. You have gracious generosity, part of the spiritual blessing. You have material blessings, and you use those material blessings. You apply Bible doctrine to whatever situation, and therefore you express the gracious generosity. And if you apply doctrine as you're expressing that gracious generosity, it counts as divine good, the increase of the harvest of your righteousness. See, once you have those super grace blessings, you use them to apply Bible doctrine. Whether it's material things or spiritual things, you still apply Bible doctrine and using them and giving them and expressing the gracious generosity, but make sure that you do it with the correct mental attitude inside the divine power sphere, so that it can count as divine good, and therefore you can use it as spiritual growth, so that you can have the harvest, increase the harvest of your righteousness. Okay, for the purpose of expressing all gracious generosity, this is the principle. Gracious generosity is in all areas, not just riches, not just material wealth. For the Corinthians, yes, because their test deals with money. For you, by way of application, gracious generosity is not just money, all areas. It could be material things, it could be abstract things, it could be information, it could be time, anything. If you have an extra little bit of this, extra bit of that, you share it. And you do it with the correct mental attitude. And the people benefit from it. And now, we have here Hades, this qualitative relative pronoun of hostis, Hades, and it's in the feminine singular because what's in the feminine singular? Haplotes is in the feminine singular. So this haplotes is the antecedent of this relative pronoun. But this relative pronoun is not just a regular relative pronoun as the NIV translated. Where does it say? In every way, so that you can be generous on every occasion. Oh no, the NIV did not even get this qualitative relative pronoun. And through us, your generosity will reserve in thanksgiving. Yeah, it did not get it. The Spanish, la Reina Valera, la cual produce por medio de nosotros acción de gracias a Dios. Well, it did not get the qualitative aspect in it, but let's go back with the Greek. This is a qualitative relative pronoun. A relative pronoun by itself would just be which. Which gracious generosity does something. But because it's qualitative, we have to translate it or emphasize the quality of it, the character of it. So this means something which is of such a nature. Which generosity is of such nature, of such quality, of such character. This is what the qualitative relative pronoun does. You cannot miss it. If not, you're gonna mix the gracious generosity of those super grace believers, and you're gonna mix it with all the gracious generosity, whatever, of the unbelievers, of people here and there giving out. This is a high quality. You cannot compare this generosity of the super grace believer with the generosity of the hoi polloi. This is different. This has the blessing of God. Furthermore, you have the ministry of, once you're here, you have the ministry of refreshment. So you're adding happiness to it at the same time. This is different and has a different impact. This is not like any other generosities. Hence, the need for me making a big deal out of this qualitative relative pronoun. How did I translate it? How did I translate it? Which is of such nature, such quality, such character, this gracious generosity. Okay, but just remember, this gracious generosity has to do with all areas. For you, it might be money or it might not be money. It might be something else. That's why it says, in all things. For the Corinthians, is going to deal with money. For you, it might deal with money, yes, or in all other areas. Okay. For the purpose of the expression of all gracious generosity, which is of such quality that, and then